Hey guys, it's January 1st, 2017 here, and I'm just recording a little vlog or a little video for you guys, trying to set some new habits for the new year and really hoping to take advantage as the year goes forward and share a little bit more about behind the scenes of some of my photography adventures, some of the gear and software and equipment and technology that we're using in producing some of my images. And so for this first little entry, I'm going to take a little look back at 2016 and put together for you guys just a quick look at three of my go-to pieces of equipment, or my top three pieces of gear that I'm always reaching for first when I'm out in the field or heading out on a little photo adventure. So without further ado, probably my top piece of gear that I'm reaching for most often is actually a newer piece of equipment that I just picked up this year. It was something that I was hesitating about for quite a while, and it's a super telephoto lens. I'm a Nikon photographer and have been for over 10 years now, and had really been hemming and hawing about taking the plunge with a super telephoto. And for anybody who's not familiar, a super telephoto is generally anything over 300 mils in terms of your reach, or 300 millimeter lens and higher. So what I've done, actually what some of the manufacturers have been doing with like Tamron and Sigma, really introduced their first kind of like 150 to 600 millimeter lenses for phenomenal prices. I don't remember the exact prices of them, but they were dirt cheap. And then finally Nikon came around and they introduced their take on that, which is not exactly to the same specs as Tamron and Sigma, but it differed in a few critical ways. And that's the 200 to 500. So it's a little bit more of a constrained focal length or reach on that lens, but it was something that I really felt I wasn't sure if I was going to use it all the time. It might be too big, it might be too heavy. How often do I really shoot like super telephoto sort of stuff? Do I really shoot wildlife that's way off in the distance? I used to shoot a lot of motorsports, but I'm not shooting tons of that nowadays, and super telephotos are really handy, for example, looking far down a racetrack when you've got cars coming through a course. And obviously when you've got safety concerns like that too, and you can't be too close to a particular subject, whether it's a vehicle speeding super fast or an animal or grizzly bears or something like that out in the wild, you really do want to have that reach to create some sort of safety zone between you and your subject as well too. But I'll just show you the 200 to 500 here, and I've got it mounted on my another edition for the year, but it's not necessarily my top three, but it's my Nikon D810. And so you can see that the 200 to 500, actually you have to back up a little bit, is quite large, but just a significant amount of that is in the lens hood here. So that's from this part forward, and that comes off for packing. And when you're looking at that, it's just marginally longer than your typical Nikon or Canon 70-200 lens length. Of course, yeah, it's a little bit wider, it's a little bit heavier, no doubt about it, but we're talking about significant reach here and a significant piece of glass. And the longer the reach, kind of, you need a proportional lens hood to shield from lens flare and that sort of stuff too. So even though this adds to the length when you're using it, when it's packed away, it's unobtrusive. You just kind of reverse it on there, throw it in your bag. Or when you're out in the field and shooting with it, you really want the lens hood on there to get rid of flare. See if we get that remounted for you. Some other benefits of it as well too. Of course, when you start getting really long, shutter speeds become critical. And let's see if we're going to focus there. Yeah, we've got vibration reduction, and we've got a couple different modes for vibration reduction, some focus limiting, and of course manual versus autofocus settings as well too. So that's just been a lens that I got for some particular situations. I thought moving up to the Yukon here, I'd be doing more and more wildlife photography and stuff. But really this is a lens that for me takes up just barely more room and barely more weight than 70 to 200 in your backpack. So I've been able to throw this in my bag and get heading out there in the field and take advantage of some of the creative possibilities of that 200 or 500 reach. I think a little bit earlier as well too, I did a little write-up on that lens that you might want to check out. That's on my friend Dan Carr's blog called Shutter Muse, and maybe I'll pop a little link to that in the description field down below too. So that would be my number one go-to piece of gear for 2016. It looks massive, it's not really that crazy as you might think, and the 200 to 500 is highly recommended, and it's proven to be a great investment for me so far. Let's see, so on to number two. The second piece of gear that I reach for kind of goes along with the first one. It's highly related, and just a few months or a few weeks after picking up the 200-500, and this is no strike against the 200-500, it has plenty of reach, but I did also pick up a teleconverter. And this is my first teleconverter I've ever had, actually, and it's Nikon's 1.4 teleconverter, so it's 1.4 factor. And I specifically grabbed this for the 200 to 500, and what that does is it takes it from a 200 to 500 f5.6 to a 280 to 700 f8, and that's a phenomenal amount of reach. And since, as I mentioned before too, I'm shooting with the D810, which is a full frame sensor, and that by default, compared to your crop sensors, which have a little bit of a teleconverter factor built into them, the full frame sensors, you're not getting quite that reach, so it does help to throw a teleconverter on there and take advantage, and definitely recommend that. And that was something, again, that I thought, I'm not much of a super telephoto shooter, I'm not really going to take too advantage of it, but it's a small piece of kit that it's easy to throw in the bag and add some extra reach onto your shots. And it's not always about wildlife. I think in the review that I did for Dan there too, I was really pointing out that it's the 200 or 500 is great for getting landscape shots and just getting a little bit more creative with your compositions. And even at the minimum focus distance on that lens, which again, I'll check the specs, but I think it's something around 10 feet. So it's not, you might be used to thinking, well, I can focus really close with a wide angle lens, or if you've got a macro lens, you're getting really close. But with that phenomenal focal length at that minimum focus distance, if you've got 500 mils of focal length, or 700, even at 10 feet, you kind of start to approach that realm of macro, or at least the look of macro, depending on what you're focusing on. So if you're focusing on little flowers or details, textures, stuff like that, you can get these really cool kind of shots. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you get rid of your macro lens and just use that super telephoto, but it's just another use for that 2 to 5. So again, my second piece of equipment that really takes the 2 to 5 to a next level is the Nikon TC14E teleconverter, and there it is. It's a beauty, highly recommended. Maybe to go in a little bit different direction, but definitely another piece of camera gear that I was constantly using over the course of 2016 is actually in the mirrorless world. So the Nikon D810 is a traditional SLR camera where you've got a reflex lens that's swinging up and out of the way with every single shot that you take. That's great. It's a full frame sensor that allows really quick response to pressing of the shutter, all kinds of benefits to having a traditional SLR, but at the same time there's a lot to be said about the mirrorless world, and my go-to piece of mirrorless equipment is the Fuji X100T. I've had that for a little while. I also enjoy shooting film photography as well too, and film cameras, and there's just something about the Fuji and their mirrorless system here that, as you can see, it's a rangefinder design, and that means that compared to an SLR camera where you're looking through a mirror and out through the lens, with a rangefinder, you're actually just looking through this piece of glass here. And what Fuji's done is quite unique. They've got an electronic rangefinder and a hybrid viewfinder, a couple of different modes that you can use in there too. So it's really, really cool. It has a screen on the back. You can just use it like that as well too if you don't want to be bothered with looking through the rangefinder. and that really simplifies composition as well too. But this is just such a great little camera to have in the bag, and it's about 16 megapixels. I might be getting, that might be 16.2, I can't remember exactly now. But a great little camera that right off the bat I was shooting it in JPEG, because Fuji was quite renowned for producing JPEGs that look just stunning, and they've got a couple of really cool film simulation modes in there too, like even simulating non-Fuji film, for example. There's a Kodak mode in there kind of too. So again, their JPEGs were just great, but recently for about the last couple of months I've switched back to shooting in RAW, and I was pleasantly surprised with that. I was worried that the RAW files from a little bit of a smaller sensor that's in here compared to the D810, clearly, yeah, they're not as responsive and as flexible, or I like to call RAW files stretchy. They're not quite as stretchy as the D810's files, but RAW with the Fuji X100T is still great. There's a lot you can do with it, and I've switched to shooting RAW versus the JPEG. Just provides that much more flexibility in recovering highlights, recovering shadows, and just playing around with the photos after the fact. So that's my X100T, and you can see it's really set up kind of like a film camera as well too. This is an accessory I got afterward here, just a little thumb grip that fits in the hot shoe, and that really makes the camera something that's easy to hold. Watch, I'll drop it right now, but really easy to hold, really just you know, keep it at the ready at all times, pick it up and fire away. Again, love the camera. And the lens that I have on here right now too is a little adapter lens. Maybe I'll describe that or review that in a separate post as well too. But the default lens on here is about the equivalent of a 50 millimeter, and it's quite virtually a pancake lens. So you can see that in profile is very, very slim. Not much to it there at all, and it's a beauty. But I really, I felt I wanted to go for this wide-angle adapter as well too that fits right on there. You can take it on and off, and there's software. There's a setting in the menu as well too that allows you to correct for some of the distortion that gets introduced with throwing that wide-angle adapter on top of the 50. So this gets you down to about, yeah, sorry, now that I'm rethinking about it, I think the standard is 35 mil and the adapter takes you down to like 27. It's not a dramatic wide angle lens, but it's just a little bit wider to allow for different compositions when you're in close to your subjects, or to get a little bit more of a dramatic landscape shot if that's what you're going for. And again, it's got that distortion correction in the menus, so you don't need to worry about fiddling around with anything in Lightroom or Photoshop or anything like that. Highly recommended. I think the killer feature of the Fuji X100 as well too, for me anyways, really opened up a lot of possibilities of filing images and reporting on events live, and that's the ability to transfer over Wi-Fi. And you can take the Fuji and just let it talk to your iPhone or other phone using their app, and it'll transmit the file to your smartphone or your tablet, and you can edit to your heart's content on there, and then get files off either to a client or get them out on social media right away. And that's proven advantageous a number of times for me over the last 12 months in 2016. So yeah, pretty big difference there between my number 1 and number 3 piece of equipment, with the 2 to 5 taking the top of the list. Definitely love that piece of glass. And number 3 would be the X100T. Again, there's really nothing to not like about that camera, that you can just reach for it and have tremendous image quality, tremendous manual control, really easy to switch between automatic modes and full manual modes just by controlling the dials there. Yeah, so love that Fuji X100T too. I think that's it for the top 3 for 2016. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully that was just a little bit shedding some light on what I've been up to and some of the gear I've been working with over the last year. I've really been happy with the way 2016 went, personally, and for photography. It's been a year after moving up to the Yukon here, and just jumped right in and loving so much about the sports and wildlife and the landscapes and the people that are up here. Just getting to know the territory and what it's like to take advantage of the north. Really loving it. And on that note too, another thing that I finally did in 2016 as well too, and looking forward to 2017, I just wanted to give a little quick shout out that after 10 years of just making calendars for family and friends, I actually did take the plunge in 2017 and put together a calendar that's available for purchase as well too. I'll put a little link to that below. And now that we're officially into 2017, you can expect a little discount on that as well too. So stay tuned. And this calendar for myself, it focuses on landscapes, and really have a lot of different landscape images in here over the different seasons in the Yukon. It's just been something that I've been blown away by, the light, the characteristic of light, and the way the land interacts with light, and just such a beautiful place to be and explore. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.